Okay, indulge me for a moment here. If a political party was going to try to seize power, what would their plan look like? I maintain that it would look like exactly what we see today. You would do the following: eliminate checks and balances, take over the other branches of government, ignore the rule of law, make sure that voting didn't translate into policy, and if you think these things will get better with Trump gone, you're wrong. First of all, prepare for 4 more years of Trump. And I don't like it any better than you do, but it looks increasingly more likely by the day. I'd love to see Bernie pull this off. Hopefully the next debate will be Bernie running circles around Biden, but I don't think so. Second, what the Republicans have learned is that as long as they stick together, they can completely work around all the constitutional checks and balances. Why would they stop? They're winning. It's working. Sure, it's evil, but they don't care. They care about winning. All right, David Frum, he was a speechwriter for George Bush, so he is a noted conservative, right? This isn't some progressive or some other left-leaning individual out there. This is someone from the right. If conservatives become convinced that they cannot win democratically, they will not abandon conservatism, they will abandon democracy. And I claim that's exactly what we're seeing today. So step 1, Supreme Court justices are not awarded to the opposition party. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, known as the Appointments Clause, empowers the President to nominate and with the confirmation, advice, and consent of the United States Senate to appoint public officials, including justices of the Supreme Court. Lower federal court judges follow a similar path. They are nominated, they go before the Senate, and then they're either voted up or down. But the Senate doesn't even vote on things anymore. They're not even voting on laws in general. What happened was during the Obama administration, McConnell just said, we're just going to stop voting on judges. We're not going to do it anymore, right? Basically ignoring the Constitution. There was 2 steps in that part of the Constitution we just read. The president gets to nominate, and then you're supposed to take a vote. But McConnell just said, no, we're just going to skip the voting part, right? It's in the Constitution. He swore to uphold the Constitution. He's not doing it. Now that Trump is in place, they're pushing through all those huge vacancies, the huge void that was opened up by not putting through any of those judges, one of which being a Supreme Court justice, which the decisions that were made in the last few years, it made a big difference. There's a big difference in the last few years about how things would have been decided had a more reasonable judge been put in place. And they're now filling up the courts with these conservative judges, many of which are being rated as unqualified by these judicial watchdogs.
Well, let me tell you what this book is about. This book is about the most long-lasting contribution that Donald Trump and Senate Republicans have made for the country. And that is putting young men and women who are strict constructionists, who believe the job of a judge is to follow the law, on the courts. We did our 50th Circuit Court judge just yesterday. Sean, to put that in perspective, Barack Obama did 55 circuit judges in 8 years. We've done 50 in 3 years, and we have at least a year left for sure. We're going to do more. 1/4 of the circuit judges. Remember, most cases don't make it to the Supreme Court. Most complex litigation never makes it beyond the circuit courts. This has been the most long-lasting, important contribution the president could make well into the future, far beyond his tenure in office. Sean, the most important decision I've made in my entire political career was not to fill the Supreme Court vacancy when Justice Scalia passed away. That was the beginning, and now we've got an exclamation point here after 3 years that we thought the public would be interested in reading about, and that's why the president and I collaborated on this paperback.
I was shocked that former President Obama left so many vacancies and didn't try to fill those positions.
I'll tell you why. I was in charge of the of what we did the last 2 years of the Obama administration.
I will give you full credit for that. And by the way, take a bow. All right, that was a good line.
And you might say, this is old news, but he's still doing it. They're still basically passing no laws and just pushing through judges. In fact, just recently, McConnell has started stating that he would like older judges to retire so they can just start pushing through even more and keep a hold on the judiciary for decades to come. He's cashing in on what he stole from Obama, and it's normalized now. No one stands up to McConnell. We complain, and we watch him do it again and again and again. We think eventually he will stop, but he's just learning he can get away with it forever. He's learned his lesson about as well as Trump did. And now I'm hearing about how well Biden will play with the Republicans. Yeah, right. The Reds only have two modes. If they can get away with something, they will break the rules and stick together. When they can't get away with anything, they just obstruct the other side. That is who McConnell is. He violated his oath to the Constitution by not holding hearings on Merrick Garland, and he considers it the best thing he has ever done. He brags about it whenever he can. Okay. But that's old news. However, it sets the stage for the next story. So while we're listening, remember that the Republicans are breaking the rules to overthrow the judiciary. So quick review. Don McGahn is the lawyer that in the White House refused to follow orders of Trump's orders, believing that what Trump was telling him to do was criminal obstruction. McGahn refused Trump's order, fearing that it would be a repeat of the Saturday Night Massacre of the Watergate era, where a large number of people quit as the whole house of cards crumbled. This is in the Mueller report, right? I didn't say this. It's discussed at length in the Mueller report, where Trump came to McGahn to try to get Mueller fired, then tried to get McGahn to cover up that original conversation, the fact that he tried to get Mueller fired. They covered that up. Trump asked McGahn to create false documents to cover up the original obstruction. The hearings revealed numerous times that lawyers considered Trump asking McGahn to create false documents to cover up Trump's previous obstruction as the worst crime committed in the whole affair, right? In the whole Mueller report, most people consider that to be the worst, saying, create these documents to back up a story that's different than what actually happened. It's all layers here. Trump got obstruction inside of his obstruction. So the House really wanted McGahn to testify, but Trump claimed executive privilege. The new tactic is for Trump to announce that things have to happen a certain way because he is president. That's what he means when he says executive privilege. He means that he's a king. So a lawsuit gets filed against the Trump action, and this delays things 6 or more months. And in the meantime, Trump gets his way. He wins. That's what we have here. So to be clear, the House issued subpoenas and they were ignored by McGahn despite a judge saying McGahn needed to testify. And once again, before the court, a 3-judge panel decided 2-1 that McGahn did not have to testify. But listen to their explanation. We cannot decide this case without declaring the actions of one or the other branches of government unconstitutional. If federal courts were to swoop in to rescue Congress whenever its constitutional tools failed, it would not just supplement the political process, it would replace that process with one in which unelected judges become the perpetual overseers of our elected officials. End quote. The problem is that the 3 branches of government are supposed to check and balance each other. But one branch just said that checking and balancing the other 2 would be overseeing elected officials. Yeah, that's kind of the point. That's why there are 3 branches of government, so that when 2 clash, the 3rd breaks the stalemate. By not stepping in, the court is allowing Trump to stall by running things through the courts forever.
A major legal victory for President Trump. A federal appeals court ruling former White House counsel Don McGahn cannot be compelled to testify on Capitol Hill and can defy a congressional subpoena. And this brings us to our weekly cross-exam segment with CNN legal analyst and former federal and state prosecutor Ellie Honig. So, Ellie, House Democrats claim they have the right to hear from McGahn. Trump and his allies say they don't have a right. And, of course, we saw them refuse the top aides being testifying before Congress during the impeachment process. One viewer wants to know, what are the broader implications of this court ruling?
So, Anna, this was a legitimate shocker, and I want to make sure our viewers understand how important this is. So the Court of Appeals down in D.C. on Friday, by a 2-1 vote, ruled that Don McGahn cannot be compelled to testify in Congress. Importantly, the court did not rule whether the subpoena was legitimate or not. What they ruled was, this is not for us. This is a battle between Congress and the president, and they said this is, quote, unfit for judicial resolution. I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they're judges. This is a legal dispute between the White House and Congress. You don't have to stay out of it, but they did. And big picture, what this does is it fundamentally alters the balance of powers. If this ruling stands, it means the White House, any executive branch agency, justice, state, defense, can get a subpoena from Congress, rip it into shreds, throw it in the garbage, and the courts are going to say, nothing we can do about it.
And remember that the courts are becoming more sympathetic to this behavior because the whole court system is packed with unqualified judges with a big debt to the very conservatives who put them in place. So it would appear that Mitch McConnell's big play has paid off very well. Congress has shown that there is essentially nothing Trump could do that would push the Senate to do their constitutional checking and balancing. They couldn't even get 2 Republicans to vote the way that we all see it should have. So Congress won't check the dictator in training, and now the courts that were packed with conservative judges, checked out by conservative groups, many of which were rated unqualified for their positions, now won't check and balance either. They now have decided to look the other way as well. This is how a party takes over the country. You eliminate checks and balances, and then you let your president run amok. Subscribe to get more news, updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.